Hello, everyone. It's Adam, the host of the Baseball World Today podcast. That is our official name now, and I'm happy to announce we are available on most podcast streaming platforms. So, wherever you're listening from, hello, Happy New Year, and I'm glad you're listening. Any support is greatly appreciated. And today, our first episode, we kind of talked about what has happened. Now it's more of a prediction episode. What could happen with the three big free agents? You know who they are: Bauer, Springer, Realmuto. What's interesting is for most of them, we have not heard much at all. So we're going to talk about it, where they could go, and for what reasons. So let's just get right into it. We're going to start off with Trevor Bauer. A popular theory just a week ago was going to be that he was going to go to the Padres. But obviously, once they brought in Snell and then extra for Yu Darvish, that basically closed the door on that. And I explained last time that I think the reason they did that was because of money, because reports have been coming in that Bauer's looking for 5 to 6 years at around $30 million, and that is quite a big contract. But Bauer's a guy who, frankly, if anyone does, deserves it. He had a 1.73 ERA last year, which absolutely incredible. Let's start with possible destinations. The big one is the Reds. I'm not sure if the Reds are trying to deconstruct their team. I think they're good as constructed, and I think if they bring Bauer back, they're a really good team that can make some serious noise in the Central. I honestly thought they were going to go much further than they did in the playoffs last year, but they couldn't hit it all. But it wasn't to the fault of their pitching. Their pitching staff was absolutely marvelous, led by Bauer last year. So I think they should keep the team as is. Big part of that would be to bring back this man, Trevor Bauer. The next possible destination is our New York Mets. Now, this will be talked about a little bit later, how they signed McCann instead of Realmuto, but that opens up a lot of money for them, honestly, and I think there's no better guy to go after if you're the Mets than Trevor Bauer. Could you just take for a second, imagine going into a series facing DeGrom, Bauer, Syndergaard. Let alone the playoffs, you're not going to be feeling very confident. So, I believe the Mets' number one priority should be Trevor Bauer. I'm going to talk about how they are going to be in on Springer. I think Bauer should be the number one priority, hands down. And the last possible big suitor for the Angels, in my opinion at least, is the Angels. Angels, same thing we hear every year. They have Mike Trout. They got to find a way to make the playoffs, but they just never really have the pitching. Well, here comes Trevor Bauer. I want to try and find the problem with the Angels is lack of money, probably. Between Trout and Pujols, that's a ton, especially for Pujols to not be producing. But this Angel team has made strides in the last couple of years with some of the players around Trout. Oh, another big contract they have is Upton, who was absolutely terrible the last couple of years, if I'm remembering correctly. Hardly even played, I think. But listen, if Bauer's a guy is if you can get him with the Angels, I think you have to give it a shot. And him paired up with Trout could be very dangerous for anyone playing them. Now, there are some other teams that Bauer could sign with. I've heard a lot about the Red Sox, but I think with the money they have invested in Chris Sale already, and after what happened with Price already, I don't see that as very likely. So I feel like if the Red Sox go after any pitchers, there'll be some low-end guys, maybe bring back a Martin Perez to just hold the ship almost, not be like the top guy. Red Sox, they're really trying to cut cross. I don't think that'll happen. Another name that's been thrown around is the Yankees. I can get into this at some point, but the Yankees are kind of at a point where if they spend a lot of money on a guy like Bauer, they're going to lose out on re-signing a lot of their core players. That could be George, that could be Glaber, that could be even Gary if he finds a way to improve and has a good season next year. But if I'm the Yankees, and also they're still interested in DJ LeMahieu, who's expected to bring in a lot. So for the Yankees, I would probably hold out on Bauer and try to focus in on what they already have. Next, we're going to go to George Springer. Now, George Springer is one of the more interesting ones to me. That is because I have not heard much about him. I've heard a good amount about the Mets being interested, but nothing has really come to. Like I previously just said, though, I feel like they should be all in on Bauer first. The thing is, the numbers are there for Springer. 900 OPS last year, 974 the year before, 3-time All-Star. Great defender, really can do it all for a team. Bat leadoff, bat in the middle. He really does fit any team, but I'm not sure how many teams are going to want to put up what money he's going to be expecting. Right now, he's currently 31, so he's on the wrong side of 30. So, if I'm a team, I'm not really interested in giving him a 5-year contract, but I definitely think he'll get a 4-year deal. But if the Mets get Bauer, I'd halt on Springer. But however, if they miss out on Bauer, I'd go in on Springer. I'd have him be the guy you go in on. Next possible fit will be the Nationals. Nationals, I talked about them last episode. They need another thumper in the lineup. And right now, their outfield is about Juan Soto, and that's about it. Victor Robles has been a good defensive player, but has struggled mightily with the bat. I feel like Springer would be a good fit to bring in to maybe play right field and center, because I know he played right field a bit in Houston as well. Him fitting in the lineup would be just make, like I said, a very dangerous lineup with the already addition of Bell. Moving on to the Cardinals. Cardinals are starch for offense. I believe they were 28th in the league last year in runs scored, or OPS. 26 to 28. Either way, not very good. Like I've been saying, Springer's a fit for any team. The way he can play, the way he can mash, he can get on base still, play defense. The Cardinals should be I feel like the Cardinals should be very in pursuit of him, but honestly, I feel like he will probably end up going to the. Honestly, I feel like he'll probably end up signing with the Mets, because my hopes are that Bauer returns to the Reds, and right now that the Springer will go to the Mets. But it's tough to say. No one's really heard much about who's going where, so we're very much left up in the air here. And my last possible pursuiter is the Red Sox. We've heard a lot about this, about how the Red Sox could fill in their center field gap with Jack Egon with a George Springer. And it makes sense. It really does. From all spots. The way he plays defense in a big center field. The way he can be a leadoff hitter. He can hit. He can really hit anyone in the lineup, honestly. He fits anywhere. He seems like the best available guy for the Red Sox. However, I don't really see it happening with Shane Bloom. I think he'll go for some of the low-end guys. Some guys have been DFA'd because there were a lot of them this year. For example, Eddie Rosario, who's been a 30-home run hitter, could be an option. They already brought in Hunter Renfroe, who I think is a really good fit for Fenway Park and a possible good platoon player. And I still think Jackie could come back, but that remains to be seen, obviously. So I think the Red Sox makes a lot of sense, but I don't think that's going to be something the new guys running the front office, I'll say, are going to go for. Our last of the big three we're going to talk about is going to be JT Realmuto. I talked about him a little bit in the last episode, of course. First of all, Phillies. Looks like the Phillies are going to sign him, honestly. That's my prediction, and I talked about this last time, why that could be a disaster for the Phillies. I believe the Phillies are going to be a scrape and make the playoff team this year, especially with the if they keep the bigger format. But the fact that they did not make the playoffs last year with the bigger format, pretty embarrassing for the team. Right now, the team really isn't constructed all that well. They have obviously a lot of great players. They have Nola, Bohm and Harper, but their bullpen is a disaster. It's impossible to win ever with a bullpen like that. So that's why I think they're in possible area for a rebuild. So that problem is, if they sign Realmuto, it'll probably be to a 4-year deal. And then if they don't make the playoffs this year, I predict a rebuild. And meanwhile, Realmuto could get you a lot back, but it also could be a tough contract to trade, especially just 1 year in. So I think the Phillies will sign him. I'm not sure they should, though. However, it's tough to argue with any team when they sign, quite arguably, the number one catcher in my number one catcher in baseball right now. So I can't really fault him that badly. Another prediction I have is the Nationals. So I think this would make a lot of sense. If the Nationals don't bring in a Springer, another guy who would fit right, probably in trying to think, maybe the 4th spot of the lineup after a Soto or a Bell, would obviously great hitter, great pitcher, and a great catcher for all those great pitchers they have. So I can't really fault any team for wanting to sign Realmuto. But what's interesting is how the Mets actually chose James McCann as their guy over Realmuto. I'm going to talk about why. James McCann, with a, believe, 4-year, $40 million contract to go to the Mets. Why did they pursue him so quickly? Well, I would have, as it is with everything, probably a lot to do with the money. Realmuto's contract figures to be at least double with possibly an extra year. I think they're looking at McCann as a great value catcher. I'm not sure what I really think on James McCann, however, because he's really only had the one great season. Looking at his stats right now, I know he's a great defensive catcher. I cannot deny that in any sense. Last year was by far his best hitting season, but of course, in a shortened season, that is, so we always have to keep that in mind, had a 900 OPS. However, before that, never above 790, ever. The benefit, and also that he has just hit the age of 30, so, listen, 4 years, however, for $40 million is not that terrible, though, even if this contract doesn't end up working out. So I can't fault the Mets for this one. A lot of people were confused. It makes sense in a way. They just, after what they had with Wilson Ramos, which was just such a mess of a contract, how bad he was with them, they really just needed a dependable guy down there. And they couldn't have gone wrong between the two. But it makes sense in some ways that they went with McCann, who's definitely worse, but is definitely a good value under that contract. At least he'll get the job defensively, I know that. I think anything else he'll bring on offense will just be like a bonus for them. And I didn't mention this in the intro, but we got to talk about one more big hitter that's on the free agent market. That's DJ LeMahieu. Now, the top suitor for him must be the Yankees, and for obvious reasons. Nearly won an MVP there, has done a lot of great things for them. Quite arguably the most consistent player over the last, I believe, 2 years. Which is funny to think about because when he was signed, many fans were upset because they were going after Machado and got DJ LeMahieu instead. Luckily, I knew how good he was going to be. He always has been such a great hitter. I always wanted him on the Red Sox, but never came to be. Anyway, I digress. DJ LeMahieu, arguably one of the top hitters in the game. Now, top two, like I said, the Yankees. The problem is I'm hearing they are very far apart in their contract offers. So, if not the Yankees, where else? Where else could DJ LeMahieu go? I've heard a lot about the Toronto Blue Jays, who I don't even believe are going to be playing Toronto this year, but it makes sense, obviously. He's a great hitter to fit in that lineup. That lineup could be very dangerous next year. He could play. The thing is, what's so great is he can play all around the diamond, really. But he'd be a great guy to fit in that lineup where there's a lot of guys who can hit for power, hit for average as well. He'll be the perfect mixture of both for them. Hey, another guy the Mets are interested on could be DJ LeMahieu too. The only problem I see with this is I feel like they do have a lot of infielders, especially first base. They have Alonso and I can't remember his name. Who is it? I'll get back to you on that, but And then what frees up some space for them is obviously the loss of Robinson Cano. Him going down with the PEDs is opening a possible big hole for DJ LeMahieu to potentially fit and be way better than Cano in. So, and a couple more teams I'll mention quickly. The Angels. Funny enough, at the article I'm looking at, the way to fix the pitching problem in Los Angeles, get more offense, makes sense in a way. But if I were them, I would definitely pursue Bauer first. And if you don't get him and DJ still available, then I go probably all in on DJ, because him and Trout, that's pretty scary. I've got to be honest. Two of the arguably the best hitters in the AL back to back. Yeah. And then the last team I'm going to mention right now is actually I got two more. I got the Nationals. The problem with the Nationals is he'd probably have to play mostly just first base, which isn't like a problem, but I think his value is, he has better value being able to play all around the diamond. Certainly not a problem. Actually, I take that back. He'd have to play other spots because of the Josh Bell addition and possibly move out some young players. So I don't see that as being a great fit, but certainly one to keep an eye on if any talks about that heats up. Last one I'll talk about is the Cardinals. The Cardinals just chose not to bring back Colton Wong. Kind of makes sense. He has never really hit ever in his career. I've never really been a big fan of his. But the defense has always been there. But listen, if you can bring in a guy like LeMahieu to replace Colton Wong, I think the Cardinals have got to do that. I think for the Cardinals, DJ LeMahieu should be their top option in free agency. He'd be a perfect guy to fill the void of Colton Wong, play not as good defense, but still good defense, and just be a great hitter in that lineup that would bring up an offense that was terrible last year and make it manageable with their pitching staff. That would be definitely a much improved team. So yeah, that's basically it for today. So my final predictions are going to be, my final hopes, I'll say, is I believe Bauer should go back to the Reds, Springer to the Mets, Realmuto will probably end up with the Phillies, and then I think DJ will end up in New York, whether it's with the Mets or the Yankees. Can't be too sure with yet. I probably have to lean with the Yankees, but if they don't budge soon on their contract talks, where they're very far away in, I could see him leaving soon. So that's all for today. One more thing to mention. My hopes for the future is I'm going to also have these videos on a YouTube with just like some sort of photo over it. So I'm going to announce when I do that. So hopefully that way when I do that, if you ever have any questions or for me or anything, you can certainly hit me up with those. Last thing I'll say is you can follow me now on Twitter. So the @ is the baseball WOR2. I typed in the baseball world today, but it got cut off, I guess. So if you want to follow me, certainly do. And anyone listening, just have a great day. Thank you for listening to the baseball world today.